Welcome to the Investors Playbook, your voice in Scottsdale and Paradise Valley luxury real estate. Whether you're a seasoned investor or new to the game, consider this your edge. And now, your host, Frank DiMaggio. It's time!
Thanks for joining us on our first episode of the Investors Playbook. I am your host, Frank DiMaggio. For those of you who don't know me out there, I am the founder of MDF Development. MDF is one of the largest investors, developers of luxury homes and remodels in the Paradise Valley and Scottsdale market. I'm also the managing partner of Compass. Compass is the largest brokerage in North America. As a real estate agent, I've sold $100 million in the first year as a full-time agent, and then every year since, I've averaged $100 million in sales. As a developer and an investor, we've done over 50 projects in the Paradise Valley and Scottsdale market, mostly high-end remodels in the beginning of our career, and now we've grown into doing new builds from the ground up, not only for ourselves, but also for clients. So let's just jump right into it. Why are we doing this podcast? Why did we call it the Investors Playbook? So, coming from a sports background, the idea of a playbook is all the preparation you're doing before the game. So when you're in a game and game time's on Sunday, everything that's going to happen between Monday morning and Saturday night is really what's going to prepare you for the big game on Sunday. What really goes into making good decisions, whether you're going to buy a house in Paradise Valley and Scottsdale, whether you're going to sell your house, or whether you're going to make an investment. My thought is, if you're buying or selling, your mindset should be of an investor's mindset. You should be looking to maximize the dollars out as a seller or buying aggressively as a buyer. Then, of course, if you're an investor and you're looking to just get a return on your capital, what is the best plays? Who's making the best plays? And why are those plays getting the best returns? And I think that's all coming into the preparation. That's all coming into the work done before you really pull the trigger and actually buy the property, buy the piece of land, and then develop it into what it's ultimately going to be, which is something that's going to be a great return on your investment. The biggest question that you should be asking is, how do we get that great return on our investment? And unfortunately, the answer is going to be boring. If you are in really any game, which is why we're calling this the playbook out there, the boring stuff is what makes greatness. It's when you watch those guys out there in the gym and you watch them reading playbooks and they're doing all the things that aren't that exciting, and then they get out and they make the great plays. It's because their preparation is fantastic. And that's what you need to take as a mindset if you want to be a great investor. It's all the minutia details of the numbers, of looking at the trends, of looking at what products have sold in what areas and why, and all the different factors that are going to go into that. That's going to really result in safe investments that are going to return great returns. And I think currently right now in the marketplace, that's not what we're seeing. What we're seeing is we're seeing individuals who are comfortable in an area. We're seeing individuals who may have been investors for 20 or 25 years and said, I've always had a great return in this part of town or in that part of town. And they're not really in the game every day and looking at the new trends and looking at the new styles and looking at the new things that are getting those great returns. And I think somebody has to go out there and talk about what's going on presently, what's going on right now, if they're looking to get those great returns. And I don't see that in the marketplace. And that's one of the reasons the Investors Playbook is what it is. One of the big questions on everybody's mind is going to be, why do a podcast? Why now? And I think the answer to that is going to be kind of a more global question of, what do I do in business and why? And what I do is I look for holes in the market, and then I look how I can fill those holes. So when we first started our business, we saw that there wasn't really anybody that was out there doing these 1990 Paradise Valley flips. It was a huge hole in the market. There was a lot of inventory, and nobody wanted those homes. Why? Look at who your Paradise Valley buyers are. Typically, they're either ultra wealthy or they're opportunistic. Ultra wealthy, they were looking for a house that was done, ready to go in a great area. The opportunistic ones at that time were looking for teardowns. They were looking for things they could build new. But there was all this great inventory that was dated 20, 25 years, and it was in a great area, but it wasn't redone. And your opportunistic buyers weren't looking for that. They were looking for the teardowns, and your everyday buyer wanted it to be done. So we attacked that market and we became really successful. Same thing with the podcast. So what I'm seeing in the marketplace is, we've got investors who have been in the game for 20, 25 years We've got people who are coming from other parts of the country, and then we have first-time investors. Well, the investors who have been in the game for a long time, they're not in the daily trenches anymore. They're more a passive investor from the outside, and they're not up on what's going on north of Doubletree, what's going on west of Tatum, what's going on with all the new different trends and styles. What are the buyers really looking for now? What amenities are they looking for in the houses? Because all that has changed in the last 20 and 25 years. And a lot of them feel that what they knew and the tried and true has always worked for them is not the right mentality to have. It's not what's going to be successful. They need somebody who's out there in the trenches, dealing with buyers and sellers every single day, today, and coming to them with information so that we can make great investments. I think that is a unique niche for me. As a realtor and as a developer and an investor, I'm seeing the day-to-day decisions buyers and sellers are making. I'm seeing the amenities they're looking for. I'm seeing the parts of town. I'm seeing what's important to them so that I can make great investments. And then, of course, you're going to get people who are coming from other parts of the country. When somebody comes into this market from another part of the country, they need to understand the nuances of the Paradise Valley, Scottsdale market. It's not like everywhere else. It's like building on the coast in California or in historical areas of New York. It's not just right down the middle, find a great piece of dirt, build a house, and it's that easy. We have to deal with the weather and the sun out here. We have to deal with how we're dealing with water. When water in Arizona hits the ground, it doesn't do the same thing it does everywhere else. And the town of Paradise Valley and the town of Scottsdale are constantly making adjustments on how we can effectively deal with the water. If you haven't been here and haven't been investing in this area, you're not going to know possibly why one lot is a lot better than another because of how the water flows or because its orientation out the back. Those are the type of things that, having been here and doing this for over a decade, I know. And I need to be able to get that information out there to these investors that are coming from different parts of the valley. Then, of course, you've got your first-time investors. You have people who have money, they're on the sidelines, and they're looking to invest in Paradise Valley and Scottsdale real estate, but they haven't done it before. And even if they're local, they're always going to come from their understanding of the market, areas where they lived, areas where their friends lived, things they've seen on Zillow. And a lot of that stuff, although it's decent information, it's not the best information if you're going to make a multi-million-dollar investment. They need somebody who really knows the differences and the nuances in parts of Scottsdale and parts of Paradise Valley, and where if you're going to make this significant of an investment and it's going to take this much time to get a return on your investment, that you're right every time, that you're making the right decisions every time, because you can't afford as a first-time investor to make that wrong decision because it could bankrupt you and you'll be out of the game. So we tackled why do a podcast and why now? And obviously the next question out of everybody's mouth is going to be, why me? Why listen to Frank DiMaggio? What makes him uniquely positioned to give me the best advice, whether I'm going to buy a house, sell a house, or invest my money into Paradise Valley real estate? And I think the first thing that comes to mind is how I've uniquely positioned myself as not only one of the top real estate agents, but also one of the top investors and developers. I think that is the secret sauce, and that is the differentiator between me and everybody else in this marketplace. So as a real estate agent, I'm out there with the buyers and sellers, answering their questions, taking them around, and making sure they're making the best decisions when it comes to buying and selling real estate. And then as a developer and as an investor, I'm going out there and taking the information that I'm learning as a real estate agent and utilizing it to make the best investments, to make the best development deals. So when you think about what we're doing, it's almost like the cheat code, because when you're driving around with buyers and sellers all day and you're listening to what they're telling you, they're almost giving you the answers to the test. Because if you over and over again hear, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I can't find, this is what I want, this is what I'm willing to pay 10, 15, $20 million for if they had it, then I can go out as a developer and then I can produce that product. I can go out as a remodeler, find that product and execute on it so that I can produce that inventory that they can't find. And if you hear it enough over and over again, you start to realize, okay, this is how the market's shifting. This is why it's shifting this way. And these are the things that I need to produce so that I can fill that shifting market and fill the inventory that's not out there. This was especially prominent during COVID, of course. I mean, pre-COVID, you were seeing so few people who cared about home gyms and people who didn't care about home offices and people who didn't care about theater rooms. And then all of a sudden the market shifted when people realized they're going to have to be in their home more often and they started to want those amenities. Now the question is, coming out of COVID, how's that going to change? Have they adapted? Have they realized, I like having the home theater. I like having the gym in my house. I like having the office in my house. Or is it going to change once again? And they're going to say, you know what? Maybe I needed this during COVID, but now I don't need it anymore. Now I want to go back to the gym. Now I want to go back to the office. And I think if you don't have somebody who's also a real estate agent who's having those daily conversations with the buyers and sellers, you're not going to be on the forefront of which way you should be investing your money for the next 1, 2, and 3 years of how long it's going to take to do a development deal. So far, we've covered why do a podcast, why now, and we've gone over that. And then we've talked about why me? Why would you listen to me and not somebody else? Really, the last question we've got to ask ourselves is, how's this podcast going to be different? We know that there's other people out there that are going to do podcasts about real estate. There's going to be podcasts in real estate in Arizona. So what's going to make this one different? I think the biggest differentiator is going to be the information that we want to put out there and the guests that we have on our show. I think most of the podcasts right now are bringing on other real estate agents. They're bringing on friends, and they're talking about their story. They're talking about how they got into the real estate world. They're talking about, maybe what their best deal was. But at the end of the day, that's all great entertainment, but it's not the information that you need if you're going to buy a home, sell a home, or invest in Paradise Valley and Scottsdale. What you're looking for is the numbers. What you're looking for is the facts. And yeah, we've talked about it more than once. It might be a little bit boring. You know what? If you want to be in great shape and you go to a trainer and you say, hey, look, I want to be in great shape, most likely they're all going to tell you the same thing. They're going to say, eat chicken, eat rice, eat vegetables, do cardio, and work out like crazy. That's boring. That's not going to be the glamour and the sexiness of watching people who are in great shape walking around the beach. But if you want to be there, it's the boring stuff that gets you there. That's what makes great success. And some aspects of this might be number heavy and some of it might be graph heavy. But at the end of the day, that's the information you need if you want to be great. That's the information you're going to need if you want to make great returns on your investments. And that's the realtor that you want if you're going to buy or sell a piece of property in Paradise Valley and Scottsdale, and you want to max out your dollars on one end, or you want to make sure you're getting a great buy if you're a buyer. And we'll definitely talk about some of our deals. We're going to talk about how we got into the business and all that. And I'm sure all that information is going to be important, but it's going to be a small portion of what we're going to go over. The real meat and potatoes of this podcast is going to be the numbers. It's going to be the trends. And the guests that we bring on, they're going to be people who are investing in Paradise Valley real estate. They're going to be people who are looking at the numbers and looking at the trends and seeing the ups and downs in the market and the mistakes that other people have made and how to avoid those pitfalls. We're not just going to bring on our friends and talk about our stories. We're not just here to entertain you. We're here to inform you. We're here to make sure that you've got the playbook, that if you want to get into this game and you want to be successful, that this is the playbook that's going to help you. That if you want to buy a house in Paradise Valley and you want the best player on your team to help you buy the house, that you know that you're going to pick us. Or if you're going to sell your property in Paradise Valley and you want to max out those dollars, that somebody can come in there and tell you all the things that need to be done to your home, why it's going to sell for the price it's going to sell for, and give you the best information so you can max out your dollars and get the best return on your investment. When talking about doing a podcast, typically the most successful podcasts are going to be those that reach the most amount of people, the biggest audience. And those are the Joe Rogans and the big names that you hear. But when it comes to real estate investing, what's going to be the shift that you're going to see is going to be these micro environments, these micro podcasts that are dealing about one specific area, one specific type of niche, and how to be successful at that. And in real estate, there's no place that's going to be more important than in real estate. I mean, a prime example is, in one of the areas that I invest, the difference in price from just one side of the street to the other is on one side, you've got houses that are going to range anywhere between $10 and $20 million. And on the other side of the street, you're going to see houses that are valued anywhere between maybe $3 and $9 million. Literally on the same street, just one side as opposed to the other. It's almost the difference between being, oceanfront as opposed to across the street in oceanfront. And those same nuances are happening here in Paradise Valley and Scottsdale. And if you're coming from other markets, or if you don't live here, or if you're an investor who's done a different type of investing or hasn't been in the residential luxury market before, you're not going to know those different nuances. And it takes these types of podcasts, it takes these types of environments to be able to get into the details so that you know that your investment is going to give you the best return. Looking ahead to episode 2 and beyond, what you can expect from the podcast is not only everything we've talked about with the numbers and the trends, but we're going to have some guests. And of course, the guests I think are going to be different from the other podcasts you're going to see because they're going to be CEOs of publicly traded companies. They're going to be people who are investing in Paradise Valley and Scottsdale real estate and have done so for 10, 15, or 20 years. They're going to be able to talk about why they've done what they've done, how they've been successful, the mistakes they've made, and how you can avoid some of those mistakes if you're a first-time investor, if you're coming in to invest in this market from outside, or if you've been doing it for a long time and you just want to see what somebody else's perspective is. I think all that information is what's really going to separate the winners from the losers in this game that we call real estate investing. More than once on this podcast, we've mentioned the importance of the details and the numbers. And you're probably asking yourself, well, I've got MLS, I've got Zillow, I've got a real estate agent, I've got all the numbers. Ask yourself this: have you ever broken the numbers down to look at where the best place to put your money is in the following way? Imagine if you buy a piece of dirt and every piece of dirt is somewhere between $2 and $4 million, and you're going to build a house and the average build cost is somewhere between $500 and $600. So we take a baseline and we say the average lot is going to be $3 million. The average build cost is going to be $550 a foot. Take those assumptions into play and look at all the deals that have already sold, that have already transacted. Rank them from which ones with those criteria have made the most money all the way down to the ones that most likely have made the least returns or lost money. And then start to look for patterns. Are they the same builder? Are they the same architectural design? Are they in the same part of town? Are they all single level? Are they 2-story? Are they east-facing backyards? Are they south-facing backyards? Does it have the same real estate agent? And you're looking at all those different nuances to see if there is something as to why certain investors are making the biggest returns and some investors are losing money. That's the strategies that we're implementing. Those are the things that we're looking at and how we're drilling down that much on the numbers to make sure that we're making great investments and that we're making those investments before anybody else is even looking at certain areas or before other investors are looking at why we're doing what we're doing. It's already too late. If you're watching this podcast, most likely you're going to be buying or selling a house in the Paradise Valley or Scottsdale market in the next year, or you're going to be looking to invest in this market. And you're thinking to yourself, who can I trust? Who's got the information? Who's doing the work out there so that I can get the best result from my investment or from buying a house or from selling a house? Go on this journey with us episode by episode and season by season and see what it is that we do when we're going to acquire a property, or see what we do when we're going to sell one of our projects, or see what we do and the homework that we do before we make an investment. And I think it'll help you realize that we're going to be the best team for you. We're going to be the best equipped to make sure that if you sell your house, that you're getting top dollar. If you're going to buy a house, that you're buying the right house in the right area and that you're paying the right amount for what you're getting. And most importantly, if you're going to be an investor and you're going to invest in this market, who you can trust with your money, who you can make sure that not only are they going to treat the money like it's their own, but they're going to make sure they maximize your ROI at the end of the day. For a minute here, I want to talk specifically about buying a house. And whether you're buying a house as an investor or you're buying a house to live in, our mentality is you should always have the thought that it's an investment. If you're going to live in it for 10 years, 15 years, or 50 years, the day is going to come where that house needs to sell. So you have to look at it as an investment. When I'm walking buyers through these houses, or if I'm the listing agent and I'm talking to buyers, what I'm realizing is they're not looking at it from an investor's perspective. They're looking at it from, these are where my holiday decorations go, and these are where I put my linens. And yes, all those things are important, and you need to make sure that it checks your boxes. But after that, when it comes down to the most important part of the deal, which is the price, they're not really looking at it like an investor would. I'll give you a perfect example. I've got a house that I've listed that's around $8 million. And when buyers come in, they're constantly saying to me, oh, this house is overpriced. It's only 6,500 square feet. It shouldn't be this much. And then I start taking them through the process. I start walking them through the numbers. The first question I ask them is, it's an oversized lot. It's 1.3 acres in Paradise Valley. Ask your own agent, what's 1.3 acres in PV going for right now that's got a pretty good view? And the answer is somewhere between $3.5 and maybe $4 million for that lot. Now we're talking about building a 6,500 square foot house. The first thing you need to do is hire a builder and an architect and an interior designer and a landscape architect. Well, when you hire the builder for a house of that scale and that size in PV, you may be paying them upwards of $1 million in build fees. You're probably going to be paying your interior designer at least $100,000, and you're probably paying your architect anywhere between $100,000 and $200,000. So now, if you look at call it a $4 million investment on the dirt, you've paid your builder $1 million, and then you've paid your interior designer, your landscape architect, and your architect. You're close to $5.5 million. Now, the process of building a house is going to be close to 3 years between getting the permit and putting up the structure. You're going to be carrying just the dirt portion of this deal alone for at least 3 years. As an investor, we're always putting 10% on our money. That's the industry standard. If you're great, that's what you hope to return on your investment, whether it's with a hedge fund, whether it's with your stock advisor or a real estate investor. So if you're putting 10% on just the $4 million dirt, you're looking at a carry cost of at least another $1.2 million. So now you're looking at a dirt lot for $4 million. You're looking at your expenses to build as another possibly $1.5 million. So now you're at $5.5 million. And then in carry, you're close to $6.7 million. Guess what you haven't done yet? You haven't even started to build the house. You haven't bought one brick. You haven't bought one piece of wood. You haven't dug the pool. You haven't shotcreted. You haven't poured the concrete. You haven't done anything. So the question you have to ask yourself, and what I ask buyers all the time is, if you're at $6.7 million and this house is listed at $8 million, could you build this house for the remaining amount that you've got there? Could you build it for $1.3 million? Could you build 6,500 square feet? And of course, the answer is no. So you're buying that property well under replacement value, especially with the fact that it was a new build. And it started to readjust the mindset of some of the buyers. And that's where you're really going to separate yourself as a broker. That's where you're really going to separate yourself as an advisor to an investor. And that's really where you're going to separate yourself if you're listing a property and the buyers are coming to you and they're thinking, hey, does this check all my boxes? And instinctually, oh, it's overpriced. Until you really walk them through the numbers, they're not going to realize they may be getting a great deal. Anytime you're talking about being great in anything, to be great, you've got to be multifaceted. You've got to have the understanding of all aspects of the transaction, of all aspects of real estate. If you're going to list somebody's property, there's so many different factors that go into place on how you take the pictures and how you market and how you talk to buyers when they're in the house. If you're going to help somebody buy a property, there's so many different factors that are going to go into that. Where are we looking? Why are we looking at specific areas? What are we looking to pay? And why are we paying what we're paying? And then, of course, the investment side. If you're going to help somebody be a great investor, you can't just know great architecture. You can't just know great dirt. You've got to know where to get funding. You've got to know where's the best places to get the best rates. You've got to know who are the different types of subs to work with when you're doing a spec versus building a house for an individual. There's so many factors and so many nuances that are going to go into this. And if somebody's going to make a big investment, or somebody's going to list their house, or somebody's going to buy a house here in Paradise Valley, they want somebody who's great at all those different factors, because at some point, they're all going to come into play. Thanks for tuning in for the first episode of the Investors Playbook. We'll be coming out with a new episode every Tuesday morning. You can follow us on all the major streaming platforms. And of course, we'll be on social media. For Instagram, our handle will be the Investors Playbook Podcast. If you've got a question for us, please message us. We may tackle it right here on the show. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next week.